Retro Road Test, Austin Princess 2.0 vs Ford Cortina 2.0, 1980 UK specs. If the late 1970s and early 1980s had a flavor, it would be somewhere between warm Watney's Red Barrel and slightly overcooked Finder's crispy pancakes. In the automotive world, however, the taste was one of transition. Britain's streets were filled with Cortinas, Marinas, Vivas and the occasional oddball wedge like the Austin Princess. The oil crisis had passed, the unions still had teeth, and if you wanted a car to tell the neighbors you were getting on in the world, but not too much on, you looked at something around the 2.0-litre mark. So today we're pitting two stalwarts of Britain's middle management car park against each other, the Austin Princess 2.0 HL and the Ford Cortina 2.0 GL. Both pitched at the aspiring homeowner with a taste for beige corduroy, both boasting 2.0-litre engines that promised respectable rather than exciting, and both claiming to be family-friendly saloons for the Great British Motorway. Only one, however, would go on to be a legend. And it probably isn't the one shaped like a doorstop. Styling and first impressions. Austin Princess. Launched in the mid-70s and still carrying its wedge-shaped torch in 1980, the Princess looked like it had been designed by a man who really wanted to make a spaceship but was forced to compromise with something that could take roof racks. The 1980 car was still rakishly wedge-shaped, with a nose that seemed to slope endlessly forward as though it was searching for a ramp to launch itself into orbit. You either loved it or loathed it. Most, sadly, loathed it. The Princess always seemed a little embarrassed in supermarket car parks, like a sci-fi prop left behind after filming Wrapped. Ford Cortina Mk5. By contrast, the Cortina looked normal, which in Britain at the time was half the battle won. The Mk5, Cortina 80 in Ford speak, had softened the edges of the earlier Mk4, with a more modern grille, bigger glass areas and an overall air of conservatism. It wasn't exciting, but it was reassuring. It said, "I'm reliable, I'm sensible, and I won't frighten the in-laws." Which was exactly what people wanted. Verdict: the Princess scores points for daring, but the Cortina wins for not making people point and laugh. Engines and performance. Both cars in this contest come equipped with 2.0-litre engines, because in 1980 that was the sweet spot, not too thirsty, not too slow, and just enough for the motorway. Princess 2.0 HL. Under the wedge-shaped bonnet sits the 1,998cc B-Series OHCO series engine. It musters a heady 92 bhp, delivered with all the enthusiasm of a slightly reluctant civil servant. 0-60 miles per hour takes around 14 seconds, which in 1980 was adequate, if not thrilling. The Princess doesn't like to be hurried, it wafts. But then again, it also wheezes when pushed. Cortina 2.0 GL. Ford's familiar Pinto 2.0-litre four-cylinder produces roughly the same 92 bhp, but somehow manages to feel livelier. 0-60 miles per hour is dispatched in about 12.5 seconds, which was just about brisk enough for overtaking Morris Marinas. More importantly, the Pinto unit is unkillable. It'll run on 3 cylinders, bad petrol and misplaced hope without ever truly giving up. It's not smooth, it's not refined, but it does the job. Verdict: the Cortina pulls away here. The Princess is dignified, but the Ford actually gets you places before your tea goes cold. Ride and handling. Princess. Here's where the Princess struts her stuff. Hydrogas suspension, clever interconnected gas and liquid spheres, means the Princess floats down the road like a hovercraft. Speed bumps become ripples, potholes are smoothed into minor tremors, and your passengers emerge relaxed and refreshed. The downside. Push it into a bend and it leans like a drunk man trying to find his front door keys. Grip is decent, but it never feels happy about cornering. Cortina. The Cortina is old-fashioned, McPherson struts up front, live axle at the back. Nothing clever. But Ford knew how to tune a chassis. The Cortina feels predictable, planted and surprisingly agile for something bought by so many men called Derek. It's not luxurious, and it will thump you over rough roads, but it inspires confidence in a way the Princess never quite does. Verdict: Princess for comfort, Cortina for confidence. Do you want to float or drive? Interior and practicality. Princess. The interior is roomy, especially in the back where the wedge body allows for cathedral-like headroom. The dashboard, however, feels like it was borrowed from a bus. The materials aren't exactly luxurious either, hard plastics and dodgy trim abound. And because it was the 1980 SBL, you were never entirely sure if all the electrics would actually work at any given moment. Cortina. The Cortina's cabin is conservative but functional. The dashboard is simple, the seats are firm but supportive, and the controls are where you expect them to be. Boot space is decent too, although the Princess, thanks to its hatchback-esque silhouette, despite being a saloon, arguably has the edge on awkwardly shaped loads. The Cortina also wins for build quality, not stellar, but you stood a better chance of everything staying attached. Verdict: Cortina for ergonomics, Princess for sheer space. Running costs and reliability. Princess. Ah yes, reliability. To be fair, the O-Series engine wasn't bad, but everything around it tended to fall apart, fall off, or fail to start. Buying a Princess in 1980 was an act of optimism. Servicing was cheap enough, but the phrase parts availability often meant driving to scrapyards with a prayer book. Cortina. The Cortina, meanwhile, was the cockroach of the British car scene. Every mechanic knew how to fix one, every scrapyard had bits, and they just kept going. Insurance was reasonable, fuel economy was around 28 miles per gallon if you behaved, and you could thrash it mercilessly and it'd still get you home. Verdict: no contest. Cortina every time. Image and ownership. Princess. Owning a Princess in 1980 made a statement, but not necessarily the one you wanted. It said you were either brave, eccentric, or simply unlucky when the fleet manager handed out keys. It's the sort of car that had middle management divorcee written all over it. Cortina. Owning a Cortina, however, was the British equivalent of blending into the wallpaper. It was the default car. Everyone had one, everyone knew someone who had one, and it was as much a part of Britain as tea bags and power cuts. It didn't say much about you personally, but at least it didn't make people snigger. Conclusion. So, Austin Princess 2.0 vs Ford Cortina 2.0, 1980 edition. The Princess was innovative, comfortable, and striking, but fragile, slow, and let down by its maker. The Cortina was ordinary, predictable, and conservatively styled, but utterly dependable and perfectly judged for its time. If you wanted a smooth ride and a sense of daring individuality, you picked the Princess. But if you wanted to get to work every day without standing at the side of the A40 swearing at a puddle of oil, you bought the Cortina. In truth, this test was never really fair. The Cortina outsold everything because it was the safe choice, and Britain in 1980 wasn't in the mood for risky wedges. The Princess has become something of a cult classic now, admired for its oddball bravery. But back then, the Cortina was king of the car park, and the Princess was just the car you tried not to park next to. Trophy winner, Ford Cortina 2.0 GL. Because in 1980 Britain, beige and boring beat bold and broken every single time.